So, as it says here, GCSE Maths starts now. You're still in year 9, but as is the tradition in school, we start your GCSE now. Gives you a little bit of a head start, and that way you're not starting fresh in September. You are starting now. So you've got a few weeks of GCSE Maths, and then you come back to September. We just carry on, and those extra few weeks are going to be really useful because there's a lot of content to cover, and there's um, lots of past papers to practice. And the more time you've got at the end to practice and go over things, the more useful. So you're not going to see a revolutionary change in maths. It's not going to just suddenly become really different. Maths is the sort of subject that you build upon, and you'll find that we're going to go back over things and you'll find you've done them before. We might go into them in a little bit more detail. You might have to answer questions that are worded in a slightly different way. But a lot of this stuff you've done before. There will be some new things as well. But we're going to have a look first at the scheme of work. So this is for intermediate numeracy, target grade C pupils. So that means that we're focusing on trying to ensure that everybody gets at least a C. Now, it is possible to get a B in intermediate tier, and it goes down to an E. If you get any less than an E, it's ungraded, and you can't get an A on this paper. But if you get a very high B, then we would sort of be able to put you into a higher tier paper later on to try to get you a higher grade. But for the majority of people, I think aiming for a C is very reasonable. So a little bit about the paper. So you've got to be able to recall and use knowledge. You've got to be able to select and apply mathematical methods, and you've got to interpret and analyze problems. So this means recall and use knowledge. Just if there's an angle rule, you've got to be able to recall that, say that, you're going to get some marks. Select and apply mathematical methods. So there might be a word question, and you have got to pick the right method to solve that. And interpret and analyze problems. So there could just be a general problem, and you've got to sort of interpret it, analyze it. You've got to come up with a strategy to solve it. So that's the different things they're testing here. You've got two papers. One is non-calculator, Unit 1. One is calculator, Unit 2. They're both an hour and 3/4 long each, and they're worth 80 marks each. Okay, so there's a lot of stuff here, and I don't think we should be too bogged down in what all this stuff means. But I also think that it's nice to have at least a little look at it. And you can see here that 112 lessons. So that means 112 topics. I'll show you the first page of what we're going to learn. And you can see here that the first thing we're going to learn is simple average speed calculations and interpreting distance time graphs. Okay, and this is 3 lessons. There's a few sort of different problems and things to think about, and that's what we're going to do in today's first lesson. We'll go back and have a look at this. We've got starters, which are going to cover a variety of sort of basic knowledge, because one of the things you've got to have is your basic knowledge. All the things just to do with number, sort of rounding, shapes, sort of decimals, that sort of thing. All that sort of stuff, which you should know, we're going to do a little bit of at the start of every single lesson. And that way, the more you do it, the more you are going to remember it, because it's a shame when you learn something, you're really good at it one day, and then the next week you can't remember what it was. Okay, so the more we practice, the better we're going to become. So it's not too dissimilar from the sort of starters we do. You'll find the lessons are not too dissimilar from the sort of lessons we do. There's not that much of a change, except from this point forwards, everything you're covering is going to be all the different things in your GCSE. So it's really important that when you write things down in your book, sort of you've got it properly titled, you've got the learning objectives, and you've got all your exercise done and your notes and your work marked. It's almost like a fresh start now. And if you miss a lesson, it's important to catch up, because if you miss out knowledge now, it's still going to be asked in your GCSE, so you have to catch up. So, fresh start, we're going to start with a starter, and there are 6 questions here that I would like you to have a go at. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to give you 5 minutes. I'm not going to say pause the video here. I'm just going to give you 5 minutes to do what you can. You might only get through a couple. You might get through them all. You might pick the first one and the 5th one and do the ones you find easy. But I'm just going to, in real time, just give you 5 minutes to work your way through what you can here, and then we'll talk about some answers. And that'll replicate what we would do in class, because I'll just give you a bit of time, and then we'll go through some answers, and so we'll practice that here. So 5 minutes starting from now. Okay, right, you've had 5 minutes there, so hopefully you got a few answers. But just like in a lesson, I would be saying sort of write pens down now and let's go through some answers. So get some answers on the screen and let's talk through them quickly. So round this correct to the nearest 10. So thousands column, hundreds columns, tens column. So we've got to get to the nearest 10. That's going to be 6,090 because it's between 6,090 and 6,100. It's close to 6,090. Nearest 100. So hundreds column is here. So it's between 6,000 and 6,100, and it's closer to 6,100. Right, 7 with a little 2, that means 7 squared. 7 times 7, so it's 49. Okay, this isn't a divide symbol with a tick there. It means square root. What times itself makes 25, and the answer is 5. Jack estimates that this is going to be 80,000. He's wrong, because to estimate you round each thing to one significant figure, so the nearest sensible number, so this to the nearest 10, this to the nearest 100, so 20 times 400, the 8,000, he's way off, he's added an extra 0. Calculate this, so use a long multiplication method for this. Just write it out, and you're going to be doing it step by step, working through with the 5, carrying a 0, working through with the 2, add them together, you should get this. Probability, you'll describe probability you'll break your leg tomorrow. I put unlikely. When it says describe the probability, it's looking for a word. So the words are impossible, unlikely, even chance, likely, and certain. It's not impossible, but it's unlikely. So that's why I put that one. And find the area of this one. We'll go through this in a bit more detail another time. Let's not worry too much about it for now. But there is a formula which is given to you, and it just requires you to input numbers. It's always going to be the top and the bottom ones added together times this one, and then halved. And that's always going to be the area of a trapezium. If you recognize the trapezium, great. And also putting units is useful. Okay, so that's how a typical starter would go in one of these lessons. Not too dissimilar from the sort of the 10 questions I would normally put up in your previous lessons. And similarly, the types of questions are going to get repeated. So you might have got some things here completely wrong, not had a clue, just sat there for 5 minutes having a guess or stuck. But as we go through more and more of these, you'll get the hang of them, and you'll sort of start getting this stuff really learned. Okay, so today we're going to look at travel graphs, as it says in the scheme of work. We're going to hopefully be able to interpret travel graphs. So here's a travel graph. We looked at this earlier in the year, but long enough ago that I think we need to talk about it again. So we've got time going here, and we've got distance going here, and we've got journey A. So this line represents a journey. So there's a few different things we've got to know. When the line is straight, so I don't mean straight up or straight across, I mean not a curve, it means we're going at a constant speed. The steeper the line, so you see how this line is pretty steep and this line is not as steep. The steeper the line, the faster the travel, because you're covering distance in a shorter amount of time. Now, when it is flat, that means that time is going on, but the distance is not changing. That means we're stopped. And when the line goes back the other way, it's just going back home. So if we talked about this as a journey, okay, we are going, we start at home, and then at 1 o'clock we went 10 kilometers to our friend's house, and then we waited there half an hour for them to get ready, and then we traveled another 30 kilometers to go to Nando's. We stayed there for an hour, okay, between 3 and 4. Then we went to the cinema. We got to the cinema about 5. It was a pretty short film. We left about 6:30, and then my friend went his way back home, and I went straight back to my home, and I got home about 8:30. So that's just an example of what this journey could represent. So you notice how the flat portions we were staying still somewhere. So we're at my friend's house, at Nando's, at the cinema, and the journeys. So this one we went 10 kilometers in half an hour. So that means we would have gone 20 kilometers each hour, so 20 kilometers an hour. This one we went 30 kilometers in an hour, so 30 kilometers an hour. So it's quicker. This one we went 10 kilometers an hour, so 10 kilometers an hour. And this one we went, so we got 2 hours, 50 kilometers at 25 kilometers per hour. So we can work out the speeds just by thinking about how far we traveled in what time, and then sort of working out, well, what does that mean per hour? We can work out where things were fastest just by looking at steepness of lines. We can work out how long we were staying still, and all these different things help us understand this graph. So what's typically going to happen in an exam question is they would show you a graph like this and ask you a bunch of questions and tell you a little bit of a story and ask you to fill in some gaps. Okay, so what we're going to do is I've set you a My Maths exercise, but I'm going to go through it with you first. So when you do it, it'll be very similar, but things will just be slightly different, but you're going to use the same process to answer the questions. So, question 1, spot the graph. Label 3 of these 4 graphs with the letter most appropriate to its description. So let's have a look at the first one, A. Harry runs with a constant speed at first. So constant speed means a straight line, not a curved line. So straight away we know it can't be this one, and it can't be this one. This one obviously starts straight, and this one starts off straight as well. Then he slows down before stopping. Well, this one, he just stops dead. So in this one, he slows down because it curves and goes gradually to a stop. And then accelerates back to starting position. So again, accelerating is a curve. This will be a constant speed. So it's got to be this one in the top corner. Right, the next one. Joe accelerates up to a maximum speed and then immediately switches direction. So here we go. This seems to accelerate because the line's getting steeper and then immediately change direction because it's just a point there. It's not any length of time. And then she slows down and stops. And this won't be a constant speed. And also this one will be slowing down to begin with. It wouldn't be accelerating. It's got to be this one. And then this one. John gradually slows down from his original speed. On coming to a stop, he then runs in the opposite direction and maintains a constant speed. So slows down, stops, constant speed, straight line. So it's got to be this one. Okay, so let's check those answers. Good, we got those right. So look at the next question. Right, so swimming race. The graph shows the progress of 2 swimmers, A and B, in a race over 2 lengths of the pool. So pink line's A, blue line's B. So you can see going up here is 1 length, and then you hit the side, and you turn around, and you go back to the other side. So what distance was covered in the race? So 50 meters for the first length, and then back another 50 meters. It's going to be 100 meters for that one. Who was ahead going into the turn? So this top bit's where they turn. So the pink line, A, gets there first because they hit the 50-meter mark at the earlier time. So they're going to be ahead in the turn. So even though you might look at this and think that here's the turn and a race, this B is in front, that's further on in time. This person is ahead, A. Who was quickest making the turn? So it's basically asking, see the flat line where they're stopped. Who has stopped for the shortest amount of time? And you can see that the flat line for B is smaller, so that means that B was ahead at the turn, quickest making the turn. So what's the greatest distance between A and B in the race? So distance is sort of up and down. So we're looking for at what point was the gap between the line up and down the biggest, and you can see that it's here. And if you zoom in, you can click on the graph to expand to contract it. Then you can count the squares, and it's 13 squares between top and bottom, which means that 13 meters was the distance between them. Right, okay, who won? So who got to the end, who got to the bottom first? That's the blue line. So it's not about the pink line being in front, that just means the pink line got there at a later time. So B won that one. And how far was left to go when the swimmers were level? So level means same distance at the same time. It means that when they cross. So you can see they cross here, and you can also see that there's 20 meters to go. So let's check those answers. Great, got them all right. So what you need to do now is you need to have a go at that My Maths exercise. Okay, so we will be doing the next couple of lessons on distance time graphs as well. But it is really important that you have a go at this, because this is the start of your GCSE. And think about whatever has happened in the past sort of weeks and months. This is your fresh starting point where you can just make sure that you're going to get everything you need. You're going to put in your full effort. You're going to try your hardest, because that way you're going to get your GCSE grade the best it can possibly be. Okay, and if you have any difficulties with any of this, just message me in chat, email me. When you see me in school, ask me. But what you do not want to do is just ignore it and hope it goes away. Okay, you've got to understand everything. Okay, right, that's it for today.